Imagine, if you will, a tiny island. No oil, no gold reserves, absolutely zero military might, just overwhelming poverty, crime, and this thick, suffocating fog of uncertainty. We're talking about a nation that literally had to beg its neighbors for drinking water. Yet today, this cinematic underdog holds the ultimate key to the globe. We are going to unpack exactly how a tiny, entirely unwanted island engineered the world's most powerful passport, and I promise you, it's going to completely change your perception of global power. Welcome to this explainer.
Think back to 1965. Singapore was, for all intents and purposes, an unwanted country. There is literal footage of their Prime Minister Kuan Yew breaking down in tears on global television right after being kicked out of the Malaysian Federation. It was a moment of sheer desperation. But fast forward to today. That exact same country issues the single most powerful passport on the face of the earth. A citizen from that once-abandoned island can walk up to almost any immigration desk in the world and be treated like an absolute VIP. So you have to ask yourself, how on earth do you go from tears of total rejection to global dominance?
Well, the answer comes down to something called trust engineering. You see, Singapore's unprecedented rise wasn't built on launching missiles or striking oil. It was built on the ruthless, highly calculated weaponization of trust. In international politics, trust is literally the ultimate currency. Realizing they had zero natural resources to fall back on, Singapore's leaders made this incredibly dangerous yet brilliant calculation. They had to engineer their own citizens into their greatest and only asset.
Section 1. The Unwanted Island, 1965 and the Struggle for Survival. Back in the chaotic, gang-torn slums of the 1960s, the global consensus among experts was pretty much unanimous. They all said, Singapore will not survive. It wasn't a prediction. It was stated as a matter of geopolitical fact. But you know what? Being completely written off by the entire world forced an incredibly high-stakes game of survival. If the actual dirt beneath their feet had nothing to offer, then the minds and the discipline of the people walking on it had to become the most valuable commodity on the planet.
Section 2. Master of Discipline. Building a flawless machine.
While a lot of the developing world was kind of drowning in instability, Singapore took a radically different path. They aimed for a flawless, perfectly controlled machine. Chewing gum? Banned. Drugs? The death penalty. The streets had to be spotless. Cameras absolutely everywhere. If you broke a law, you faced strict, immediate punishment. Now, some observers called it a dictatorship, others called it genius leadership. But the undeniable result was a profound combination of fear and discipline that absolutely shocked the globe into respecting them.
And this intense discipline, it was completely weaponized. Singapore didn't just build schools for casual, everyday learning. No, they treated education like a full-blown military operation. They were literally forging the future soldiers of their economy. We're talking strict discipline, pure meritocracy, and deep, deep technological and financial literacy. Every single aspect of a student's life was strategic. They knew that if the brains of the nation became powerful, the country itself would become unstoppable.
Section 3. Global Chess. The Art of Making No Enemies.
Physically, yeah, Singapore is tiny, but its geopolitical influence is just massive. And they pulled this off through a flawless game of global chess. Step 1 was weaponizing their geography by building the most efficient trade ports on Earth. Step 2, attract insane amounts of multinational wealth by guaranteeing total safety and low corruption. And Step 3, which is probably the most vital, maintain perfectly balanced ties with everyone. America, China, India. They never openly created a single enemy. They just made sure everyone needed them.
If you want a physical manifestation of that strategy, just look at Changi Airport. When you walk through Changi, you aren't just in a transit hub. You are experiencing a carefully crafted psychological message. The extreme cleanliness, the jaw-dropping efficiency, the stunning indoor waterfalls, it's all intentionally designed to whisper one very specific message into the ears of global investors. Singapore is reliable.
And hey, that reliability was actually stress-tested by fire over the decades. During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, while surrounding economies literally collapsed, Singapore remained totally stable. When the 2008 global financial crisis hit and the world stock markets burned to the ground, Singapore stood strong. With every single global meltdown, the world's trust in Singapore only increased. They had successfully built an economic survival machine.
So, what is the result of all that? Over 190. That's the number of countries that now offer visa-free access to Singaporean citizens. Because listen, a strong passport isn't just about going on vacation. It is a global reputation score. It equals business opportunities, diplomatic influence, and massive investment confidence. When a Singaporean hands over their passport, the immigration officer doesn't just see a traveler. They see total stability, immense wealth, and flawless discipline.
Section 4. The cost of perfection, the shadow behind the skyline.
But we have to be real here. This staggering success did not come for free. The narrative takes a noticeably dark turn when we look at the price citizens actually had to pay. It brings up a deeply psychological question. Must freedom be sacrificed for a perfect society? It's honestly the deepest, most disturbing layer of this entire story, because building a flawless, uncrackable system inherently requires absolute control.
Now, impartially reporting from our sources, the criticisms leveled against this utopia are severe. The system relies heavily on extreme state surveillance. There are constant, ongoing debates regarding freedom of speech, persistent accusations of media control, and incredibly powerful government influence over daily life. Critics strongly argue that this staggering success is ultimately built on a foundation of fear. Furthermore, Singaporean leaders themselves openly admit to a constant fear of systemic collapse. They know that if discipline loosens even a little bit, the whole machine could shatter, simply because they have no natural backup resources to catch them if they fall. Section 5. A futuristic survival machine. Engineering tomorrow. Yet despite those profound debates, the machine just keeps moving forward. Because they lacked a huge army, the founders turned the citizens themselves into a fortress. With compulsory national service and deeply rooted cultural discipline, every single citizen indirectly becomes an ambassador. When a Singaporean travels abroad, they are literally carrying the psychological branding of an entire nation's strict system right on their shoulders.
And they've made that system even more premium by physically building the future. We're seeing heavy integration of AI and digital governance, flawless smart city systems, a totally cashless economy, giant sci-fi green skyscrapers casting neon reflections across the water. Because the world naturally trusts the future, Singapore simply turned itself into the physical living embodiment of tomorrow.
Resources do not matter. Strategy does. If there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that a tiny island proved that true geopolitical power doesn't actually come from geographic size or natural wealth. It comes from perception. It comes from an ironclad system. It comes from engineering absolute trust out of absolute zero.
So we end with this lingering paradox. When that red booklet opens at an immigration counter, it represents decades of calculated ambition, fierce discipline, and undeniable sacrifice. But is the world's most powerful passport a symbol of ultimate freedom, or is it the result of a perfectly, perhaps terrifyingly controlled system? Is this tiny island the ultimate dream model for humanity, or a stark warning? That decision is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.